There are so many different Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and reading is so hard for Yu-Gi-Oh players, so it's only natural that there are a lot of different effects that people just kind of forget. But what I think is really interesting is when there's effects of good cards that people are well aware of that people just gloss over because they're not the main effect of the card. And in today's video, we're going to talk about 5 Yu-Gi-Oh cards that you probably forgot had secondary effects because you've only seen them like one time or possibly even never seen them used, which I think is really interesting because it's one thing when old cards that are terrible and have never seen play and you don't know those cards' effects, but it's another thing when there's a card that's seen hundreds of logged tops or tournament wins in some cases, and then you've never seen or read a particular effect of that card. So anyway, let's jump right in with number 5, which is Performage Hat Tricker. Pretty commonly played Performage card alongside Trick Clown and Damage Juggler. These cards are really cool, and they were very popular not only with competitive players but also casual players because they were all commons, and you would think that you would remember all of Hat Tricker's effects. However, it does have a secondary effect besides the special summon effect, and actually the main effect of this card, you could even say, is the secondary effect because it takes up the majority of the text. So, of course, you can special summon this thing if you have 2 or more monsters on the field, or not if you have 2 or more monsters. If there's 2 or more monsters on the field, period. So you only have to have 1, and your opponent could have 1, or your opponent could have 2. But anyway, its secondary effect is an anti-burn effect, so it gets counters when those cards are effect activate that would inflict damage to you, and then if it gets 3 counters, it buffs up to 3,300 attack points. Why is that never going to happen? It's never going to happen because this card is primarily used for rank 4s, or nowadays it's used for link summons. I don't even know what case this would go off. There's only like one real card that burns yourself in a deck that'd be playing Hat Tricker, and that would be Trick Clown, although in a lot of cases you're special summoning the Trick Clown before you get to the Hat Tricker. But even in the case that you manage to get a Hat Tricker on board and you summon a Trick Clown, that's only one of the 3 counters, and there aren't a lot of burn cards in the metagame. Even a deck like Trickstars isn't quite as like burn heavy. It's more of like a controlling deck with Reincarnation that burns you in incremental amounts. But when are you going to summon a Hat Tricker against Trickstars and let it sit on the board? And more importantly, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just make a rank 4? I mean, it's basically a 3,300 attack normal monster if you do let it sit on the board, and in many cases it's just more important to have a rank 4. So has this effect ever gone off? Maybe. I can see it coming up if you played this card against a chain burn deck. Obviously this would be really strong, but even in that case, if you're playing Performage Trapeze Magician, the rank 4 Performage card, that card just stops all effect damage, so I think you'd probably just make that instead of leaving the Hat Tricker on board. But the only case that this would then resolve would be when you can summon Hat Tricker and then you're not playing Trapeze Magician, or you can't put a second spellcaster on board to make it. But I think in general, people are only using Hat Tricker for the special summon effect, which makes sense because it's really good. Next up is the TCG version of Card of Demise. Now I know the anime effect is a little different. I don't even know what it is off the top of my head. I think you like draw 3 cards and then they all go to the grave in like 5 turns. Something ridiculous, but I don't worry about the anime effects. Anyway, Card of Demise has a lot of effects, even on the TCG legal version of this card, and there is one that seems to be kind of forgettable. So everyone knows that you draw up to 3 cards, everyone knows that you discard your hand during the end phase, everyone knows you can't special summon the turn you activate it, but did you miss that you also can't inflict damage to your opponent during the turn you use this? I know some people have. In fact, Cordero, who many of you know as Vexicus4666, he actually missed out on a top 16 at YCS Origins because of that effect. He was slightly behind in life points, but completely in control of the game, but then he activated a Card of Demise, putting himself at an even greater advantage in card advantage, but he couldn't deal the amount of damage that he needed to actually win the game, so Cordero lost out on a potential top 16 at a YCS because that was in Game 3, and the person that he lost to actually ended up winning that event, Jake Finney. So that would have been a completely different event had Cordero not missed that effect. But I think, to his credit, a lot of people miss that effect. There's so many different things you have to keep track of, and so make sure when your opponent or when you're using Card of Demise, make sure that both of you are fully aware that the person that's activating the card can't inflict damage to the opponent, because that's really, really big. I think that people sort of forget about that, especially against True Dracos. The game states get pretty complicated. There's lots of card effects activating. Make sure if they use Card of Demise on their turn, and it's not the first turn, it's like their second turn, or maybe like 10 turns down the line, they top deck Card of Demise, summon masterpiece and then attack you for game, make sure that you tell them that they can't actually do the damage to you. Really important part of card demise that I think a lot of people forget about. Next on the list, we have the card that actually made me want to do this list in the first place, and that is Castel, the Skyblaster Musketeer, one of the most popular rank 4s in the history of the game for its shuffling effect. If you detach 2 materials, you just spin a card back into the deck. That's really powerful, but did you know that this card has a Book of Moon effect as well, and you only have to detach 1 material? It's pretty crazy. Many people don't even know it exists, and for a good reason. There's not a lot of times when you'd actually want to Book of Moon something instead of shuffling it back, although it is worth noting that, yeah, you get 2 uses out of it because you only have to detach 1 material instead of 2. What's really interesting is this did have some competitive validity in Patrick Hoban's Shaddoll deck list. He mentioned in his deck profile that using Castel in Shaddolls to turn your own monsters face down was a really, really good strategy that he used in a lot of different games, which I think is interesting that some of the more competitive players, the really top competitive players, do notice these secondary effects. But in general, most people never use this effect, and I don't think it actually has any purpose outside of turning your flip effect monsters face down. But there's not a lot of decks that even play flip effect monsters, let alone flip decks that not only are playing the flip effect monsters, but also can make Castel while leaving a guy face up. It's so many things have to go right for that to happen. It was a lot easier back when Soul Charger was at 3. That's the deck that Hoban played this card in to a great success with that secondary effect. But yeah, so now you know that Castel can turn something face down. Once again, I don't think this ever comes up outside of flipping a flip effect monster face down, and not a lot of people play flip effect monsters, but now you know, just in case if that ever comes up, or if you ever want 2 uses out of this effect for some reason. I don't really know why, but if you do, now you know that the option exists. Kaijus are some of the most effective removal in the game right now, and Gamma Seal is by far the best kaiju, only because it has the least amount of attack. It might seem kind of strange, but basically the idea of a kaiju is that you're tributing over one of your opponent's monsters, and you want to give them something that you can easily deal with, so a lot of people play Gamma Seal. But did you know that Gamma Seal also has a ridiculous negation effect? Yeah, this card is absolutely insane if you can manage to get some tokens on the, or counters on the field, some kaiju counters. So anyway, this card, let's see, during your player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, except Gamma Seal, you can remove 2 kaiju counters from anywhere on the field, negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. So that effect is really good for 2 reasons. Not only does it negate it, it also banishes it, but also it's not once per turn. Now, how do you get kaiju counters? Well, there's a few ways. The most popular way, and I think if you have heard of this card's second effect, you probably know that there are some World Chalice decks that play the kaiju waterfront field spell, or Kyoto Waterfront, I believe it's called, and that card generates a lot of counters. It's really easy to get them up, and then when you can summon Gamma Seal, not only is it good for getting rid of your opponent's cards, but if you can actually get it to your side of the field, then you can negate a whole bunch of stuff. This card has one of the craziest negation effects in the game, but not many people use it just because people don't play the field spell. But if your deck can play the field spell, like World Chalice, definitely want to play Gamma Seal, and you absolutely want to summon it, because then it's almost impossible for your opponent to deal with. I mean, this card can pack so many different negations in it at one point. It can be a real pain to deal with. Anyway, though, the number 1 spot is going to be Zodiac Borbo. This card is, without a doubt, the worst of the Zodiac Exceed monsters. It's pretty much the only one that doesn't have a relevant effect, and usually was just used as a stepping stone. However, this card does have an effect, and it's kind of weird. Let's take a look at it. So, obviously you all know that it can attack your opponent directly, but also, let's see, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, well, it has 12 or more materials. You can send as many cards as possible from your opponent's hand and field to the graveyard, then change this card to defense position. That's never gonna happen. It's so difficult to get this thing to 12 materials, even in a zoo deck. Even if you sort of did like the full power zoo combos way back in the day, there was almost no time that you would actually end with 12 materials on something. That's just absolutely insane. That's like more than just every Exceed monster and then 3 Whiptails. You need like everything on it, and then you need like a couple more turns to set it up. It's never gonna happen, and even if it does, the payoff isn't that much better. It might seem really flashy to sort of get rid of everything. It's sort of like a Sky Scourge effect, but even Sky Scourge is easier to resolve than Zodiac Borbo, and probably the biggest reason you don't see this card played or that effect used is because the usual Zodiac cards, the ones that are already played a lot and they do use their effects, those ones are just so good by themselves or even amongst each other that there's no reason to sort of play this really flashy game ender card, because many times it was just better to have a single Zodiac Trident, which was a lot more consistent than trying to go for this sort of Borbo OTK. So that effect probably is never going to happen, although I do think I'm sure it has happened. It's never really the optimal play though. It takes so much to get 12 material on it, and then to do the attack, and then to actually have this thing resolve, your opponent would have to have like no forms of disruption. Pretty unlikely. But anyway, that is going to wrap up this video on the sort of 5 cards with secondary effects that you completely forgot about or didn't know existed. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this discussion. If you have any other cards, feel free to post them in the comments below. I think there's a lot to choose from, and I don't even really want to call this a top 5 list just because it's 5 that I thought of, and I think I would be very open to exploring this topic in the future. So that's kind of why I'm saying post whichever ones you like in the comments below, so maybe they can be included in the next version of the video. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Goodbye.